Good morning, everybody. Glad to see quite a few people in the audience. That's nice. And actually, this is the last series of a series of workshops that we've been having, and we're going to be discussing the financial viability of the city and looking at in the future where we need to go and what we need to do to run the city. And with that, I'll turn it over to staff. Oh, yes, let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic, one nation, under God, liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you, Mayor, Council, and community. We've held a series of workshops over the last few months to kind of look back at our budgeting process, our budget, how we spend money, how the revenues and expenditures have gone over the last few years, and some of the needs from the areas where we do spend quite a bit of money, related to our street infrastructure, our fire department, law enforcement services, city administration services. So this is kind of like, I think of it as like a capstone meeting, sort of summarize and wrap up some of those meetings and some of the things that we've heard over the last several workshops, and kind of talk about some future goals and future planning for the city and our budgeting process, as we are going to be starting that process here relatively soon. To be able to have that ready for June for the City Council to look at and review and approve. So all these comments and things that come out of these workshops will get reflected in that budget document that we take forward as well. So we're going to move into a PowerPoint here. So I'll get the lights off, and I'm going to jump over into the box over there to run the slides, and we'll kind of run through the last couple of meetings and then have a broader discussion with the community as well. So I'm going to Okay, so we've gone through a couple of those strategic workshops, some of those things that we've seen. Make sure that's okay. It's still working okay, and going through it. So this workshop is just to kind of summarize, like I kind of said, and go through our other topics, other things that we have done, and covered some of the other meetings in the past, and we'll kind of walk through those other workshops. So the first one we held was related to street improvements. So City Council did that one in conjunction with our Roads Advisory Committee to kind of look at one of the big assets the city has is its roadways. It's also another very large expenditure that we have to do for street improvement projects out there on the community and the roads. Some of you have maybe run into some of that if you live on the east side of town. We do currently have a street project going. So you'll see some road closures and work actually happening out there right now, and that's related to the work that the Roads Advisory Committee does and the City Council and staff. Through that, we do have a process that we put in place a number of years back. The Roads Advisory Committee went through and looked at various options to help fund the roads, and one of the ways that we did it was through a benefit assessment district. So every year on your property taxes, depending on certain aspects of where you live in your property and size and location, is assessed a certain dollar amount to help fund the roads. So on average, those road benefit assessment district brings in anywhere from $400,000 to $450,000 on average. So some of you pay slightly less if you live on a private street, because obviously you have to do maintenance on your own roadways. So those that are on the private street, you know what the pain and the joys of doing street improvement projects on those shared roads are for that. So that's one way that the Roads Advisory Committee came up with an idea of a funding source, along with the City Council, and put that in place. So that helps offset those costs. But as we've seen over the last few years, those costs have increased exponentially. So the cost of oil, the cost of asphalt, the cost of labor has increased greatly. So our projects on average used to run construction-wise in that $700,000 to $800,000. But we've slowly seen that increase over the last few years, anywhere from that to $1 million to 1.2 to 1.3. We had one small project that opened for 1.7. We then went back and scaled that project back down a little bit and ended up at 1.4. And then our current project we have right now is $1.5 million. So they're quite expensive to do the roads projects, the work that goes on the roadways, but there's also other components to it. There's construction management, there's inspection, there's materials testing, there's design aspect to those that all cost and take some money out of that. And as we know, we want to see more road work done out there and more improvements being made. And that's one of the ways that we look at, should we be spending some additional dollars towards those street infrastructure and that street money. So that was our first workshop to focus on street improvements and our roadways. And we did that jointly with our Roads Advisory Committee. Our next one was the fire department, sort of talking about the state of the fire department. It is another large source of expenditures for the city to have and operate the fire department. We do it slightly different than other communities do. We have a volunteer fire department, so we have paid chiefs, captains, and paramedics, and then the volunteer firefighters. So the firefighters are volunteers. They typically come straight out of the academies. To us, this is generally their first job as a firefighter. It gives them a great opportunity to come and gain that firsthand experience, and we lose them relatively quickly. The volunteer firefighters, our paramedics as well, on average, about 80% loss in the fire department. So we lose 80% of the staff every year in the fire department. So we're constantly recruiting, constantly trying to bring on new members. It used to be a slower process where they would sort of go off in slow periods, but kind of through COVID, it got hard with paramedics. Paramedics couldn't finish the hospital aspect of their training, which then delayed everything for medics coming in. So they were really in demand. So for us at the city, we had to relook at the way we handled paramedics and hiring and retaining paramedics. At the time, there was a funding source from the government called ARPA, which was related to COVID. So we took some of those ARPA funds and made a tuition reimbursement program to sort of help incentivize having paramedics come and stay with us. We also increased our hourly rate for paramedics. So all those things kind of added to help us try to retain some paramedics. We also moved to allowing single function medics. In the fire department, most paramedics are what they call dual function. So they're also a firefighter, but they're also a paramedic. At that time, we moved to allowing single function medics. So some of our paramedics today are just paramedics. They don't do the firefighting operation side of things. They're strictly there for the medical aspect of it. Some of them are both. They do both. They typically will get hired pretty quickly by larger agencies. They pick them up really, really fast because they're in great demand. We actually just lost a whole chunk of them to the city of Compton because the city of Compton lost a whole chunk of their firefighters to the county of LA. So LA County took them from Compton, Compton takes from us. That's kind of the way it goes. We've also lost a great deal of our firefighters and paramedics to Memphis. So it's not just local agencies that come and take them, but we have quite a number of our firefighters that have gone off to Memphis because the chief for Memphis Fire was a Southern California firefighter and knows the training and the knowledge that they have here. So he comes out and takes big groups of them at a time back to Memphis. So it's kind of interesting. That's just one aspect of it, but it's also the other part of it where there's other needs that the fire department has. Obviously, we worked with the senator's office. So Senator Archuleta was very gracious and was able to secure some funding for us to be able to purchase a new engine. The new engine has just been put into operation, but an engine and outfitting that was right around $1 million for us to be able to get that engine out, purchased, outfitted, and into service. So it's a great expense. And the one nice thing there is that's a big expense that was already been covered and we're able to have for the next 10 to 20 years is typical lifespan for those pieces of equipment. But we have other equipment that needs to be replaced. Our brush patrols, our just the PPE and the turnouts and things that the firefighters wear. They on their they wear for their own protection is quite expensive, and it does have a life to it. So all of those things have to be replaced on a rotating basis. They're only good for a certain time period because all of the chemicals and the materials break down over time, and we need to risk the safety of our firefighters. The other thing is our apparatus bay. So here at City Hall, it's also everything. So fire station is here as well. They have an apparatus bay, which is where all the equipment is stored in the back. In a metal building on the back side of it, you can see that building has got a slight lean to it. If you look at engine 774 up there, you'll kind of see how that has got a little lean to it. It's something that definitely needs to be improved, enlarged, and replaced. We have been working to try to secure funding for that. We did again meet recently with Senator Archuleta, who is also trying to help us secure some state funds that we might be able to use to replace that building, and hopefully in the near future. And the other picture on there are two of our other trucks. They're the Brush Patrol, and the other one is what they call the USAR, so Urban Search and Rescue. Those are two vital trucks for us because those are much smaller, so they can get into much tighter quarters, much tighter places. The Brush Patrol truck has a pump, holds water on it, and has fire hose on it. So a lot of people, if you have very steep driveways or down long driveways, you may not see the engine come down to your house, but you might see the Brush Patrol come down to your house because the Brush Patrol is just a pickup truck and it can maneuver in much tighter places. So both of those are 90s Fords, so they're in need of being replaced. On average, about $200,000 to $250,000 to replace those vehicles in today's costs, and can take up to a year to 18 months to actually obtain the vehicle. So there is not just like personnel things over there. There's a lot of capital. There's a lot of equipment that the fire department uses. There's a lot of other aspects of firefighting that we have to be able to have and replace and do on a continuous, ongoing basis. There is a fire tax that you all pay on your parcels. So that's a part of it, and that depends on the size of your house and the size of your property will sort of determine the cost that you pay. On average, that brings in about $1.2 million is what the fire tax brings in to help cover the costs of the fire department. Here's their station. So station and day house, so kitchen, dining room, and day room, and they do have their sleeping quarters in the back. Those are the modular buildings that are right behind City Hall here. That is where the firefighters live, sleep, eat, cook, and do everything during the day is those quarters. So they're always in need of repair and improvement. There are like, I think one toilet and one urinal for upwards of like 13 people at a time. So sometimes they will use some of the City Hall restrooms to be able to accommodate all the firefighters they have on staff. The next service we talked about was law enforcement. We do not have our own police department. We contract with LA County Sheriff's Department for our services. We have called 70-hour deputy. So we're assigned 70-hour deputy. It's basically one deputy that covers 7 days a week, 10 hours a day. That base price for that service is, like I said, there's $761,000 a year is the cost to have that one deputy here once a time. We do additional services on an overtime basis. So to be able to keep costs a little bit down and provide additional services, we do traffic enforcement. We do utilize motor deputies. So those are the motorcycle deputies you see out there. Usually you want to slow down if you see them because they will always write you a ticket for those guys. And also our community services officer who can write parking citations, handle small calls, and also do small investigation work above a certain dollar amount, and no one was harmed in those. That you will be able to take those through CSO services. So that is things that we do on an overtime basis that we pay for as needed. And as we do, we typically do have one community service officer dedicated to us that we utilize anywhere from 20 to 30 hours a week. You may see him. He has a white Ford Taurus is his vehicle. They have yellow lights on it, so if you see that cruising around, that's probably Anthony Lopez. He is our primary community services officer, so he's out there quite a bit. He's also here generally for us later at night as well, so he tries to do his hours here in the evening time and into the night to help provide a little additional coverage and presence in the community later in the evening time. But sheriffs in general are fairly impacted. They are understaffed at a sheriff level. They're always in a great need of deputies. They're having a hard time keeping and graduating deputies. So their academy classes have been getting smaller and smaller, and less deputies are actually graduating out of those academies. So they are, a lot of times, were moved into like forced overtime, where they actually have to work additional hours at a forced basis. It's not that they don't have, they want to work overtime to make additional money or a little bit of extra income. A lot of times they're forced to do that. So it's a forced overtime for a lot of those deputies that work out there. But our primary deputy did just retire, Hector Beltran. We do have a new primary deputy. His name is Gio Sarah. So if you do see him out and about, very nice, happy to talk to anybody. He will be in and around. He stopped his first big rig on Hacienda the other day and was very excited and let us do it. We, this week, myself had an opportunity to see him in action, and he was very, very, very good. We're very fortunate to have a very good deputy to help cover and provide some services to us. The last one we had was City Hall administration, where we kind of touched on this building, what happens over here, what happens in City Hall, how we operate, the number of staffing we have, and we've sort of seen over the years our staffing has declined. We have some numbers from back in like the 2010s, so now like 15 years ago, we had about 15 full-time staff, 2 part-time. We had 4 to 5 contracted. We're down to 9 full-time staff and 3 part-time. We have 4 contracted employees. So we try to do a lot with a little. That's always the way we've looked at it and sort of try to operate. It does get difficult because obviously all of us wear many hats. For me, it's city administration, it's all of the committees. So we have council, planning commission, emergency preparedness, roads, and our investment advisory committee, and a code enforcement committee. So I provide services to all those committees, prepare the reports, prepare the agendas, attend those meetings, and that takes time for all of those things. I also deal greatly with all of the development in town, so people trying to go through the planning and building process. I have mostly done all of those things. We've recently brought in a contracted employee to help review some of the planning stuff to take that load off of myself. I'm also the technical city clerk, so public records requests. We're going to have an election this year. All those things are duties and things that I work on myself, along with some of our public works and engineering things that go on. I have to be involved and oversee some of those things because those are typically major projects that expend a good amount of money. So we need to watch and make sure that those things operate carefully. Like Angie over there, Angie does finance. She helps with the administration. She's our IT, HR, risk management. So that's a lot of those duties that Angie does. So in a lot of other places you go, you'll see multiple people carrying those titles and things. But here we do try to spread it amongst the staff, but we don't have a great number of staff members. So we do a lot with the little. Over the last several years, there's been a great increase in regulatory requirements. So all of those things, those rules that get made by the state and the federal government that we have to follow are all things that we have to touch on and regulate and make sure happens, gets done correctly, end up reporting on all of those things. So those are some of the stuff that goes on in the City Hall side and preparing all of our agendas and meetings and things like that for that. We covered in that meeting. This one is sort of wrapping it up. So we're kind of looking at where does our funding sources come from? So most cities have a mixture of funding. We have what are called property taxes and other funds, but also some cities will have sales tax. We don't have any commercial, so we have very limited sales tax. There's a pro shop at the golf course, a little bit from the restaurant at the golf course of sales tax, and there's a couple other people in town that do have a business that this is their tax base for it, so we will get a little bit of sales tax base off of what they do for their businesses. But majority of us is property tax and then other revenue. So that's going to be service fees, so permits, plan reviews, inspections, park rental, all of those things factor into the revenues the city makes on top of our property taxes. So we took a little look back here, back to 2022. So you can kind of see how things have increased over the last several years, but even if you look at the property taxes, so we hover right around $3 million a year in property taxes, and so in those ensuing years, we haven't seen a great increase in the property tax base, obviously because that a lot of times now is dealt on sales of homes. We don't have a lot of new homes being built and new homes coming online and new property taxes coming out of those. It's typically when people sell their houses, and we don't have a huge number of homes that sell every year. On average, it's 40 to 60 houses a year that will sell. And depending on who's buying and selling those houses, the property taxes will increase as part of that, unless it's somebody who's doing a Prop 13 transfer, then it will sort of stay kind of as it is. A lot of people have lived here for a very long time, so their property taxes are based on when they purchased their house a long time ago, so they're not a huge property tax dollar to it. So you can see that one doesn't increase exponentially. It just sort of, it goes along and it makes a small increase every year. From there, you can see how the other revenues have generally increased over the years, and that's through increased park rentals. We do quite a bit of park rentals. There are a lot of basketball teams that rent the gym for training and games, so that has definitely increased over the last few years. We've had an increase in permits and planning reviews and all of those things, so we have seen some increases in other revenues that come into the city. And then just to break down property tax. So when we kind of think about property tax and what it is, not every dollar of your property tax comes to the city. There are a great deal of agencies that are involved that get a share of that property tax. So you can think about it, we are fourth from the bottom down there, so it's about 10 cents on the dollar. So the funding that the cities receive from the property taxes you do pay is about 10 cents on the dollar is what actually comes into the city. So you can see like LA County is about 32 cents of your dollar. The educational fund, the city, another educational, the La Habra Heights Water District, the county water district also receives a share of the property taxes as well. And you can see as it kind of climbs up through there, those shares get a little smaller and smaller and smaller. So when we talk about property taxes and those dollars that flow into the city for paying for services, it's about that. You can think about it about 10 cents on the dollar is what actually comes to the city based off of what your annual property taxes that you pay that way. So we just wanted to highlight that we are not all that property tax dollars do come to the city, that there are a great number of agencies that have a portion of that property tax that goes to fund those things, and such as the county and educational systems that we have here in Southern California. This graph just kind of highlights some of our revenues versus expenditures. So you can kind of look at how things have grown. Over the last several years, we've had quite a few expenditures that have increased as cost of things have increased greatly. Everybody sort of saw it like in building materials and other things through COVID. Kind of went through COVID, all those prices kind of made a very astronomical jump to it. Those things have continued to stay high and go across and increase over time. So you can sort of see like our total expenditures over time has greatly increased as our revenues have stayed relatively steadily about the same. So we're not creating a great amount of additional revenue to be able to offset those additional costs that we have. Every year we take on new burdens, new programs, new things that we have to do for the state and federal government as far as mandates, and there's no funding that rolls in to cover those costs for those things and those operations that we have to do. So this one just kind of helps us oversee and look at kind of where we are, where things go, some of the large expenditures that we have out there. So we kind of talk about like our expenditures are definitely increasing greater than our revenues do at a much faster rate for those things. And also other revenue sources in the past are just not as available as they used to. Fire department used to be able to get a good number of grants. We go out and we seek out and apply for grants. But in the more recent times, a lot of those things have dried up. The grants are very difficult to get. We have 3 of them that are just sitting there for more than a year and a half, and there's been no movement on those. So we worked closely with one of our congressional people to get a grant for the gym. So we went out, we received a grant for the gym, but it was never appropriated in the federal budget, so we'll never see that money or those fundings to be able to make improvements to the gym. So those are some of the things where that stuff in the past that we used to rely heavily on. A couple of them. There's a grant called SAFER and another one that would help pay for turnouts and staffing and equipment for fire departments, they're extremely difficult to get, very, very competitive, and very difficult to be able to get those sources. So they have just become a little less reliable, not something we can count on for now. Looking forward, we have not been able to count on those things to be able to sort of offset some of the other costs and expenditures the city has. The general fund, which is kind of what we're talking mostly about today. General fund is like think about it as our primary bank account. That is also used to offset the shortfalls of the other ones. So fire department costs more than $1.2 million to operate every year. So every year the general fund will make a transfer into the fire department fund. So it'll offset the fire fund. That sometimes can be anywhere from a couple $100,000 to closer to $1 million would be transfers to the fire department, just depending on what happened, what repairs, what was needed over in the fire department. So those are monies that comes out of the general funds. Those general funds dollars are what are used for primary a lot of the things we do, for capital improvements, for staffing, for programs, for facilities, for roads, and we kind of have seen those bleeding off out to other things out of our general funds over the last several years. One thing we're trying to look at and find other solutions to is a stable revenue source. So something that can help the general fund grow, be able to provide those services that we need to provide, additional things that the community is looking for, enhanced law enforcement, so additional law enforcement services, greater fire department staffing and equipment and materials out there, more road construction, improvements to the park and the gym and other areas, and maybe other programs and things that are needed. I know our emergency preparedness committee, we had that meeting on Thursday with them. They have some great ideas and some good things they would like to do with putting out some storage areas throughout the community where we can have supplies and materials ready, staged throughout the community in case of an emergency. Those would all take funds to be able to make those things happen. So those are some of the things that have been happening over the last few years we wanted to kind of talk about and look at. And as we go through that budget process, that's really where we focus on the dollar amount. So over the next couple of months, Angie and myself look at our revenue projections. So we look at, okay, what are we projected to potentially receive in property tax, other revenues, looking at what is in the future for us. We look at, is there a house coming online where additional funds are going to come into those, and we kind of estimate what our revenues will be, and then we start looking at and talking to the departments to figure out what our expenditures are going to be, what is needed. We need vehicles for fire department. City Hall site needs vehicles. We need to do roads projects. We have other studies and things that need to happen and come out. So that's where we start looking at those expenditures and trying to make those two correlate and see what we can accomplish in the upcoming year and or years. So that's where having something for a stable revenue source for the future would really be a good thing to be able to help the city grow and maintain. Right now, we sort of get by as we get by, but as we kind of see, you can see when you look at the costs over time have increased greatly. And if we don't find a way to sort of close that gap in the future, I can't necessarily say that we can be here forever. We may reach a point where we may not be viable economically to stay as a city. And that's not something we want to do or talk about, or have that fear of maybe we get to a point where the costs of providing services just greatly outweigh what we would be able to provide, and we may have to look at another change, another option, something else, or disincorporation it back to the county, which isn't something anybody really would like. But it is a real thing that costs will continue to climb and increase. Our revenues stay relatively about what they are. We try to do the best we can to make every dollar stretch as far as we can make it stretch. You can see, I mean, our mayor right now is very physically conservative and tries to make sure that we spend dollars wisely and accomplish things the best way we can without wasting money on non-frivolous things. And he's been very good at that. He's been here for a very long time. We do have a reserve. We have a good reserve, but those are here for those catastrophe moments. And the one nice thing about the reserve today is the reserve is making us money. The Investment Advisory Committee has done a great job of investing that money wisely, and that has actually become a good revenue source for us every year. So not only do we have a little bit of a safety net there in case we had another flood like 2024, that 2024 flood, in a matter of 2 weeks, we spent nearly $600,000 like that. That wasn't budgeted for, that wasn't in the budget. Those are the things where like the reserves are here for that. Those help us offset, cover those costs. If we need to purchase another engine or do something, a major purchase, those are what those reserve dollars are there for. If we start spending those reserve dollars just as regular budget items, we would deplete those budgets, those reserves really, really quickly. And then at that point, we would have no safety net and would be at a great peril for any major catastrophe, not being able to respond and be able to go back to where we were and what we needed to be at. So sorry I'm rambling, but I'll kick it back to the council, and we can talk a little more dollars and cents. Angie has some harder numbers and just graphs in the PowerPoint there that will let you kind of see what there is. So I'll hand it back to Angie and the council, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Rafferty. And this is a workshop, so I know we didn't take public comments at the beginning of it because there's a reason for that, because it's a workshop. So we're going to leave it open to anybody that wants to comment or ask questions and interface, and that's what we're here for today, so to answer your questions or for you to give us ideas as far as what you would like to see. So with that, do I have Stephen, come on up.
Thank you, Stephen Blagden, Citron Road. I've come to some meetings and watched others, and there's like a disconnect between the after report and what I hear at the meetings. I've heard a lot of good ideas for saving money, reducing costs, and then like the Guac talk this week said, as discussions have progressed, it's become evident that maintaining current service levels and addressing long-term infrastructure requires additional sustainable funding. In the reports, I haven't seen the ideas that have been brought up for saving money or becoming more efficient. On the roads, this is something that'll cost money. There's only 2 projects left, and some of the same roads that weren't done with Assessment District 4. And Assessment District 4, as you recall, the city spent the money before the project was done. So there are some roads that weren't done at that time, hopefully be done this time, because they haven't been done for 20 or 25 years. And then there's ways to do things less expensively. Some of the roads that were ground and overlaid could have been slurry sealed to make them last until the next time. And these are some of the roads that are remaining. These are the bigger ones. LaFleur, Ardshiel, much of Hacienda, East Road, Avocado Crest, Walnut Street, and the whole east of Harbor area. So there's only 2 projects left to do those. Plus the slurry seal on the 17-18 project, because by 27-28, that'll be 10 years old. That's Reposado, Valle, Huacate. That should all be done under the Assessment District 7, because those people paid and they haven't got anything yet. Then fire. The fire department used to run a surplus. The City Hall property, the fire department helped to pay for. I heard some good ideas from a resident, at least to look at. Since if you look at the fire department budget, most of the cost is for the fire side, and most of the calls are for EMS. So an idea a resident had was to have EMS here and then do a per call for LA County. There's also, the city could have an EMT school here, which the state allows. We used to have the fire academies. You get a lot of students in who then become volunteers. Or the EMT students could go on to become paramedics, and you could have an arrangement with the paramedic school that they serve their intern time here being paramedics. And Senator Archuleta, at the dedication of the fire engine, was almost begging for the city to tell him things that we need so he could pay for them. And then the sheriff department, like your last council meeting, a resident called up after hours and had to wait quite a while for the sheriff department to come. But something that could be done, depending upon the type of incident, is if it's going to be 2 hours for the sheriff to come, just call the fire department. At least you get some people there. The flashing lights and sirens could do the job of the sheriff department. Then the idea was to have a private patrol, which can cost a fraction of what the sheriff department does for certain hours, save money, make more efficiency, license plate recognition, cameras to follow up on crimes. And then we can have as much sheriff service as we want. If we want 24/7 sheriff service with 5-minute response times, you divide the city into 4 or 5 sectors, 4 or 5 cars, cost $12 million a year. Then on administration, we've heard about using AI, online forms and services, and automation that can reduce costs and help staff make things more efficient. And the disincorporation was mentioned by Rafferty. Thanks to Rafferty and Angie for wearing many hats and doing the jobs they do. The city was incorporated to protect land use or to control land use, and for the volunteer fire department. Those were the 2 big ones. People who were here can add in if they have other thoughts. But we see the state taking away land use control, and regulations are making the volunteer fire department more difficult to have. And we're paying, and then our roads, we're paying extra for those. So if we went back to the county, no road tax, no fire tax, we're losing land use control. So I'm not saying we need to do it. I'm saying that it's something that we might be forced to do by the state. And that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else want to comment? I see a hand there, and Rick, you'll be next.
Well, you don't know me because I haven't been to a meeting, but I am a long-term resident. I've lived here since 1987. My name is Sherry Carter, and I'm interested in these discussions because my background is working in local, state, and federal government with small, medium, large, and mega large budgets. And what's unclear to me is what we're trying to achieve, the money-wise. We've got 4 buckets: street improvements, public safety, fire department, and city administration. But I haven't seen, and I saw the graph with the gap. What is that gap? I mean, do we have a budget deficit, a spending deficit, both? Are we projecting one? If so, when? How much? It feels like we're mushing things together when we should be separating them into buckets and looking at them separately, so that we're ensuring that we're charging the right fees and permit costs to cover those buckets. So do we have a budget and spending deficit? Is that what that graph is, or is that a projection? What is the number we're trying to achieve?
Well, we can talk to that, but you actually brought up some very good points and some very good questions, because it is separated into those buckets.
Right.
And I'll let staff comment on this too, but we're looking at our long-term viability, and what worked 20 years ago is not working for us now. And we're on an old tax base up here, as the houses turn over slowly, of course, the taxes rise a little bit, and we're getting about 10 cents on the dollar out of those tax dollars. And our fire department costs have continued to increase tremendously over the years. And our paramedic system, that was never really funded. We used to, going back probably 25 years ago, La Habra used to do our paramedics for like $10,000 a year or something. And now we've taken on our own paramedic system and merged with LA County, and that cost is tremendous, so that merged into the fire department. But as all these costs continue, and we do have an adequate reserve out there, but that's accumulation of putting a small amount of money away for 25 years.
Sure. And I should say, I have read the really good materials you have on the website on the budget. And I didn't see a spending deficit or a budget deficit. So I don't want to worry the people back here that may not have read it, because I did spend time reviewing the past workshops and all the budget materials. So I kind of get that, but it does feel like we're morphing things, kind of mushing them together, rather than looking at them independently, because it's hard for us to support, if there's going to be a tax increase request on the ballot, it's kind of hard for me to understand what it is it's going to pay for without separating them into those buckets. You know, for example, on the staffing, you had suggested a staffing workload study a few meetings ago that I saw, and I think that's where you've got to start with the administrative costs, because, you know, are we doing things that are not statutorily required, and if so, what are they, and are they required to do? Where can we implement technology? AI really does a good job in summarizing. It could do some of your minutes. There's a lot of things that, you know, it looks like we're doing manually that we could do with technology. Do we have a backlog? Where's the backlog? How many hours to complete? That would help you determine how many staff you need. You know, so it feels like if we look at each bucket separately, it would help us determine what steps we need to take rather than just throw them together and say, okay, you know, we need to ask for a tax increase, which I'm not saying I'm opposed to. It just feels like we need to look at them in pieces. If our permit fees don't look like they've gone up a whole lot, when's the last time we've reviewed our fees? I don't know that. Maybe we have reviewed them recently, currently, but they sure seem low in a lot of places, especially for the work that we do. So I guess for me, it would be very helpful to support any kind of an increase that you might be asking for, to understand exactly what we're trying to achieve rather than seeing a graph that doesn't necessarily jive with what's online, because there really isn't a gap in spending, and at what point we're going to get there. So that's my comment, is I just don't feel like there's enough information about the buckets and what we've done to fill the, you know, are we collecting delinquent taxes? You can get a company that will do that and take a percentage, but, you know, are we doing all we can to collect delinquent fines and fees? There are opportunities with red light cameras. Companies will install them for you and we'll get a percentage. There was a AB 645, which allowed 6 cities to do stop sign cameras, which would be great for us for public safety. So we might want to check those too. So anyway, there are other things we can do. And I know this is a lot of information, but it just feels to me like we're throwing them all in one place, and we need to look at each bucket separately. And, you know, we don't have a lot of money, but it feels like we need to kind of assess each bucket independently.
Carol, you have a comment?
Well,
Or question?
could you leave your phone number or something with the city manager? Because I'd love to talk to you more.
No, that was very good information, and it's those are the exact things that we want to talk about for sure. And it's, I mean, you brought up some very good points, and it's, I mean, looking back, I've been here for quite a few years, and it's, you know, when you go back to, like you stated, in 2010, we had 15 full-time employees, and we're operating today with 9 full-time employees. And believe me, our workload is not decreased at all. We have more and more regulatory things to do, and we have to do the filings like a large city. And it's the good thing, I guess, from one standpoint is we really have been fiscal responsible over all these many years, and it's if we didn't hold it tight, real tight, we'd be in really bad financial shape right now. And it's we've accumulated that reserve over 25 years. A lot of cities have gotten themselves into trouble out there. There's cities that are very close to us that I don't want to name names, but I think you probably already know that during the COVID times, the federal government injected money, and they hired lots of staff, and they didn't adjust accordingly. We never did all those things. We've never run a budget deficit the whole entire time that going all the way back. So we've always pared things down and adjusted accordingly and operated very efficiently. The problems going forward is we can't put our head in the sand either, and I see all these costs that have been rising, and Stephen mentioned the roads and things that aren't getting done out there, and we get complaints from the citizens that on permits and not getting response fast enough and those things, and it's people need all those things, and we need a paramedic service, and we need a good fire department, and we need police protection. We're already looking into, in the future, it's not on the agenda yet, but we'll be looking at more cameras up here to do those type of things. I've already had those conversations. In fact, we had the conversations during our law enforcement session. So, we're looking at way out there long term. A lot of people, or maybe the councils don't look, how is the city going to survive in the next 10, 20 years? And I think it's important that we look at that. We got some federal money, and we use that, and we've gotten grants and things over the years, and Barb Archuleta took care of the fire engine for us. That was really nice. But all of that stuff is sort of drying up. The grants that are available out there are not as prolific as they used to be. It's harder and harder to get funding. And I'm looking at the long-term viability of the city. I don't want this city to fail, and I don't want it to go back to the county. And we're looking at everything. We're looking at all sources of revenue. And the revenue, another thing to talk about is the oil revenue. We used to rely quite heavily on the oil revenue, and that's going away. So long term, we're not going to have the oil revenue that we have in the past. And the fire department, they do fire inspections of the oil wells and things. That was a fairly large source of revenue for the fire department, and that'll be going away. So that's why we're talking today, and I thank you so much for talking about all those buckets and things. You're very well versed in a lot of these things, so that's good. But I'd like to hear from some other people in the community out there who have comments. Ray's got a comment.
Good morning, Mayor and Council members. I'm Ray Fernandez. I live on Sharpless Drive. Some of you know me. And just a couple of quick comments. From this chart where it says where the city money comes from, as best as I can tell, in 2022, the city had revenues of about $5.2 million. There's no number, so I'm trying to figure from the graph. And then 2025, you had $6.8 million. That's another $1.6 million in 4 years of increased revenue, a 30% increase in revenue. I think that's pretty awesome. And I would say to you all that you need to live within your means. Most people, if they got a 30% increase in their salary, would be very happy with that. Now, my numbers might be a little off because it doesn't have an actual figure. Then I was looking at the fire department, the police department, the sheriff, and that works out, as best as I can tell, to about $209 an hour. That seems insane to me. 70 hours a week times 52 weeks, I think it's 3,640 hours divided into $761. And, you know, that would be okay if we ever actually saw a sheriff up here. I mean, I don't see him. I see him once in a while on Harbor Boulevard where they've pulled over a big rig. But I don't ever see one patrolling by my house. And is there any way that maybe you can contract with La Habra PD? They're right here. Or maybe a private security service that would patrol and cut down the sheriff hours. Just an idea. That just seems like a lot of money. Almost $800,000 for the sheriff, for a part-time sheriff. I don't know. That doesn't compute with me. So you need more revenue, right? There's different ways without having to increase people's property taxes. I think you're going to get a lot of blowback on that if you try that. People are tired of extra taxes. All that happens is everything goes up for residents, everything. Utilities, the water bill, everything. So there's ways. You got to think like business people. You've got this lot on Western Hacienda that can be developed. And you know, I'm the chairman of the Planning Commission, and 10 years ago, we had a proposal to do a mixed-use commercial building with senior housing above it. And that went nowhere because, you know, a lot of people opposed. Oh, God forbid you should ever build a business in this city. Well, it's time to think out of the box a little bit. You need to increase revenue. So that's one. The other thing you could do is our permitting system is 20 years old. You can go on cities right now, Long Beach, and you can get a permit online for many, many things. I mean, Rafferty, how much time do you spend with staff at the counter? Permits, you're filling, you're typing out the form. So, you know, I want to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. And the Planning Commission on this Tuesday, we're going to review again some ideas to expedite the permitting process because the city is leaving vast amounts of money on the table because people don't want to come in and go through the agony of, God forbid, they got to pull a building permit. So our goal in the Planning Commission is to make, you know, come up with a solution, make it a little easier, because that's a tremendous amount of revenue that you have. I think the last meeting, Planning Commission meeting, and Rafferty does a great job of providing the reports. The revenue to the building department was $45,000 in permit fees. And I remember, Rafferty, I asked you, I don't think you're paying $45,000 in staff salaries. So to the young lady that says we should look at fees, we have. About a year ago, they were increased. And I think they're high enough as it is. I mean, it's what, $3,000 to apply for a standards modification, or $3,200. So people just stay away from the city. So I'm going to try to help with that. I'm meeting with somebody from the city of Long Beach. They have a permit process. We can just go online. You can actually go and get approval for a room addition under 500 square feet right then and there. And I think we should do that. That'll take a lot of stress away from and time from the staff. So I would say, think like business people, figure out how to increase revenue and reduce your costs. And one of the ways is expedite the permitting process. You'll get a lot more revenue. So that's about it. If you need my help on anything, I'm willing to help. So thank you.
Thank you, Ray. Any other? Rick wants to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Rick Brooks, Skyline Drive. I have to say it was refreshing to hear this resident speak that knows something about city and budgets. I think that just based on what she said, she's a wealth of information, and if anyone could motivate her to perhaps volunteer some time and help out, I think that she would be a wonderful asset for that. I don't want to put you on the spot and commit you right here, but you're okay with that, right? So I want to talk about a couple of things. One is the Sheriff's Department. I don't want to go into the whole story, but so that the residents that might not have heard the last City Council meeting when I spoke about the issue with the Sheriff's Department, I had a very serious issue at my house. I called the sheriffs. They said they would respond immediately. The situation escalated. I called them back 15 minutes later. They hadn't dispatched anyone. I was on hold for over 30 minutes. It took them 46 minutes to get to my house in a very serious situation. And so I brought that up. And after I was done, Mr. Mayor, you said you should look into that to see what the cause was. And I haven't heard anything from the city. More disappointing than that, I met the lieutenant before the meeting who took my name and phone number and said that he would look into it and get back to me for at least an explanation as to why it would take that long, and crickets 3 weeks later. So that's not service. I'm a resident, I pay taxes, we pay them, and that's not service when a high-op, a lieutenant, says he's going to do something and doesn't do it. At the last meeting, you know, to me, that 70 hours a week is unacceptable. Unacceptable. Because, you know, we're here 24 hours a day. That's less than 50% of the time that we have an officer, a deputy in this city, and that's unacceptable. The response time is horrible. So we have to look at 24/7. I think that's your responsibility as city council to provide safety to the community. I ran some quick numbers for you last time that still kind of work out. You know, $1,000 a property should budget us for full-time sheriff. And if they can't do it, then we need to figure out another solution. And, you know, we're talking about county tax income. And I brought up that we only get 10%, but LA gets 25%. How is that fair? So I think that we need to go back and look, because, Mr. Steffler, you're an attorney. In the state of California, there are no contracts that are allowed anymore that are never ending. So whatever poor contract that was made between the city and the county in 1978 isn't never ending. And part of that agreement was 10% tax, and that needs to be readdressed and looked at. And we need to get more of our share of the property tax from the county. And that's one way not to raise taxes on the individuals. You know, you mentioned about cameras. Well, you know, cameras would be great, especially in Arizona where the lady was supposedly abducted. But, you know, cameras are, you know, if somebody comes to my house and kills my wife, I don't care about the cameras that are going to help catch the people who did it, because the crime's already done. The damage is already done. I want it to where when I call the police, they're going to be here in a reasonable amount of time. That's what we need. So while I appreciate the theory of spending money on cameras, we need a deputy here, or we need another police department that can somehow handle it. You know, have we really looked at divesting from LA County and going to Orange County and then contracting with La Habra? I know I've heard excuses as to why, but if the County Board of Supervisors won't give us our fair share of tax, won't increase the sheriff's budget to get more officers out there so that we can contract more hours, then we need to be removed from the county. It's that simple. Now, you know, there's a group of 25 or 30 people here, but maybe what we need to do is get a group of 30 or 40 or 50 people to go to every county board of supervisors meeting, and everyone stand up for their 3 minutes and spend 2 hours of every meeting of their time complaining about the taxes that we don't receive. I mean, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. But let's do something working towards solutions, okay? So, you know, I understand about expenditures, and, you know, most government agencies don't have an income problem, they have an expenditure problem, and they waste a lot of money. I haven't gone through the budget this year, but I did it a couple of years ago, and I felt like, you know, I think you guys are doing the best you can with the revenue that you have. So while I hear other people say, well, we could save money here and save money there, our services are so poor because we're trying to save money. Now we're trying to cut staff again. We're trying to have more people wear more hats when you call and you can't even get through to anybody. My next door neighbor, 3 years ago, applied to try to build a house. It's not through planning yet. Took me 4 years, and I know what I'm doing. Okay? So the services are poor, and they're poor because we've tried to save money. So I think that we have an income problem, not an expense problem. So I think we need to seriously look at ways to increase revenue. People don't like it. I don't like it, but turn Hacienda into all commercial, and every property that faces Hacienda can become commercial, and put strip malls in and get sales tax revenue. Do it on Harbor. That's how other cities survive, is on sales tax. Because raising our property tax $1,000, you say, okay, we got to add $1,000 for sheriff and another $200 or $300 for roads. Okay. The problem is you're going to get this money set on now, but expenses are going to keep going up. So 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, we're going to be sitting here having the same conversation because expenses are going to go up, but those are fixed incomes. So that's a Band-Aid. It's really not the solution. So I know when we incorporated the city, it was to protect the property, and we didn't want commercial and all of that. But again, it's going to come down to survival, and people are going to have to understand that. There's pain and there's pain. Which is it going to be?
Hey, Rick, please wrap it up, because we've got a lot of people to speak here.
So anyway, that's all that I want to say, is that we seriously need to look at other ways to increase revenue. So anyway, thank you.
And I think everybody on the council agrees with you on that. Anybody else out there that would like to speak or make some comments? I see a hand raised back there. Please come on up.
I'm Gene Page, been here since '89, so I've seen a lot of this. On the revenue side, seems like we get most of our revenue from property taxes. The valuations here are really low, and somebody talked about the homes turning over, and then they should go to market. They're turning over at very low prices. I think you've had some meetings on this about what keeps housing prices so low in La Habra Heights. I have worked downtown all these years, and when I talk to people at the athletic club and places where I am and tell them I live on an acre and a half, 35 minutes from here, nobody can believe it. Nobody's heard of La Habra Heights. Some people say, oh, is that Hacienda Heights? Oh, it's La Habra. That's not that nice. No, La Habra Heights, unfortunately, our name is a problem because it's part of Hacienda Heights and part of La Habra, and people in the community, people in the general LA area don't know where this is, and they confuse us with La Habra all the time. So you can't fix the name probably, but it's a problem. The issue with, I think that addressing what we can do to get housing values up as the houses turn. One of the issues is, and it was raised earlier, it's very hard to do anything to your home here. It's a torturous process. And I've had other people say, I'm just not going there because I don't want to deal with it, because I got to fix up the home. A lot of the housing stock here is kind of old and decrepit, and people don't want to deal with it. So let's make it user-friendly for people to improve their homes, increase the value, get the assessed values up, and get more income for the town. property taxes is really important. We want houses to sell for a lot of money, and we want people to improve their homes so they get reassessed. We don't have any retail. That's a problem that's been addressed. This disincorporation is interesting. A lot of the things that we originally started this town for have probably gone by. I drive again Hacienda every day. I see how well the landscaping is tended by the county along Hacienda. They're now doing landscaping on Colima in both directions. There's a lot of money in the county. So I'd love to see that money being spent here in La Habra Heights too, if we were part of the county. So I'm not opposed to it. This is expensive. If we were part of the county, maybe we don't need all this. The fire department is another question. Do we need our own fire department anymore? Would it be cheaper to get it from LA County? City of La Habra contracted with LA County for fire service. So we're right in between. They're taking care of La Habra and they're taking care of that side. And we're right, they go through us to get to them. So can we afford a fire department? We love having our fire department. We have a lovely history. It's all a nice fairy tale, but those days are maybe over. And maybe it's time to look at contracting fire service. Those are my comments. Thanks.
No, thank you very much for those comments. And going back, we did look at contracting with LA County many years ago. And what I recollect at that time was $4 million to do the contract with LA County for their fire department, to have a department, in our city and things. And it's once you go down that path, it's over, because you sign over all your equipment and you give it to LA County, and there's no turning back. And just to let you know that you have to really go in that carefully with your eyes wide open. Orange County, that was an unusual situation with La Habra that actually did that. And I watched that very carefully at the time. And they came in at a very good price for La Habra to be able to contract with LA County. And if you follow it, just recently they had to close one of their fire stations down there due to cost. So it's not an easy decision. It's something that needs to be looked at, of course, all the time. But LA County is also very expensive. They have a very good fire service. I'm not discounting that. We have, we're in Area E, so we have mutual aid agreement with them. So we give them support, and we get support from LA County. So when there is something really bad going up here, we got the full force of LA County behind us. So it's really helpful, and we get the air operations, we get all of their equipment and everything up here. But thank you for your comments. Those are very good. Anybody else out there that wanted to say something? Come on up.
This is very short. I just want to bring up, nobody's brought up about our weed abatement. You drive through our streets and there's, I know you guys are trying very hard with that, but I think we need to do more on it. Because some lots are, if there's a fire up here, we're in trouble. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Esther. Okay, anybody else? Hands up. There we go.
Hello, my name is Angelica Torres. I'm on Hacienda Road. I was wondering, with some of the shortages that we have as far as staff, is there any way that we could have some of the high school or colleges do some, volunteer work or special projects and have interns? I know at a lot of, public places they do that that might be something that we can explore. A lot of times they, want that on the resume to be working with, a city or, have assistance perhaps, that way. And I believe La Habra High School has some mandated hours, at least some of the groups do. So maybe we can get them and do some of the, clerical work or some of the easy work that, can be taught, just to relieve some of the, mundane stuff that the staff is doing now. And then as far as the chart up here, is there any way, and I'm sure you might have it online, to get a breakdown of the the other revenue and to, I guess, figure out within that other revenue bucket which portion is actually making the most money so that the city could actually focus on trying to grow that particular bucket. Because I mean, it is quite a lot. It's about, I don't know, this past year, 2025, it looks like we're at 3.5 with property taxes and about almost another 3 or so with all this, other revenue, which just, was on there just as park rentals and service fees. But if we could figure out, I guess, get a breakdown of what is really bringing in, a lot of money, because, I mean, as a resident, I definitely don't want, my property taxes to go up, and I'm sure everyone else is not going to want that. So exploring that other bucket, I could see would be more, supported overall, so that we could try and get more money, from whatever sections those are. And then everyone has been saying, but same thing with permits. I mean, if we can get those done so that people's properties could get, reassessed, and then that there is a, steady money coming in. And then as far as La Habra Heights staying as a city or being absorbed, I guess, completely by LA County and Orange County, do we actually know what the residents want? Is there, how does that get, I guess, seen? Because I know maybe, I don't know if everyone does want to stay as an independent city. Do they want to be absorbed either by, Orange County? Because at one point, obviously, La Habra Heights was part of La Habra, correct? So La Habra, I remember reading some stuff in the city of La Habra that at one point, La Habra Heights was part of them.
No, that's not true.
Okay.
You're actually somewhat, it's not true, but essentially what happened at one time, La Habra wanted to annex part of La Habra Heights.
Mm-hmm.
So you're close to being correct, though. It was never part of, we share the same zip code.
Yeah.
But one time La Habra wanted to annex a section of East La Habra Heights.
Okay, so they wanted it. So how would that work, I guess, if LA County were to absorb us completely? I mean, would anyone, want that in order to not increase some of these expenditures?
Well, it's something, unfortunately, we have to consider, because if we're not viable as a city, we're not viable as a city. So this is something we have to consider. On the other hand, we have to consider, well, what do we gain by being an independent city? Now, our purpose for incorporating to begin with was to preserve our control of, to keep La Habra Heights rural, basically, to preserve our control of our own land use regulations, and to preserve our volunteer fire department. And as was raised by other individuals, pointed out by other individuals, if the state is going to take that power away from us, which is gradually happening, at some point we may have to consider that. I'd hate to do it. I'd love to keep La Habra Heights independent, but at this point, we have, looking long range, we have to have all possibilities on the table, even those I don't agree with. But I appreciate you pointing that out. Thank you.
A question with that, is that something that would happen if we, obviously have all of these shortfalls and can't, can keep, our budget in order, or is that something that gets voted on, even beforehand? Because obviously right now,
yes,
we see, where this is going. So how does that happen?
I believe it's something that needs to be voted upon eventually.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And if I can make one more comment, you had a very interesting suggestion about getting more high school students involved in doing volunteer work in the city. I ran to a high school classmate of mine from way back when, and I ran to about a month or two ago, who served on a volunteer fire department. And basically, the reason he served on a volunteer fire department, he got in trouble at school. And his teacher, who happened to be also a captain on a volunteer fire department, gave him two choices. Either you get in trouble and get suspended, or you volunteer for our fire department. Now, we obviously can't do that anymore, but it's just an idea of showing the tradition of getting people. High school students were involved in actually very important functions way back in the day, basically. So I appreciate your comment on that. It's a very good suggestion. We have to make more use of our high school students.
Yeah, I mean, I know I have nieces and nephews who are of high school age, and I know that they are mandated to do a certain number of hours. I don't know if it's because they're in particular in high school or because they're part of a certain club that requires it, but I know that they're already doing, mandatory volunteer work, and I mean, I don't see why they wouldn't, want to do, a special project with the city, helping with, whatever backlog that there is. I mean, and then obviously we have high school students that live in the city. What better way to get the, off on the right track as far as, being good citizens to work, voluntarily at their own city. I don't see why they wouldn't want that. And then as far as getting more money from LA County, we're getting 10 cents on the dollar per our property tax dollar, and they're getting, I think, was it 30 cents on? 37 cents on the dollar? Oh my goodness. Is that because we, the city of La Habra Heights, had, there's a contract that says that? Does every independent city pay the same amount, or just us?
So this happened because we incorporated in '78.
Mm-hmm.
And we ended up not being able to negotiate our rates because there's this number of cities that are called low-tax cities. We're one of those. And there's currently the only way in which we could renegotiate our taxes with the county, and people said the county has a lot of money. The county had a lot of debt too. Mm-hmm. They just picked another $8 billion of debt up. But at the end of the day, from our standpoint, the only way we could renegotiate that is if we were to annex something. That would open the opportunity to renegotiate. This entire process began when we thought about the concept of annexing the county, what are called orphan parcels, one right across the street. Okay. There's another one almost down to La Habra. And they weren't really happy about us wanting to be annexing them. But that would have been an opportunity to do that. So annexation is a possibility to open that tax up. Now, what leverage do we have? Precious little. I mean, we have, 5,000 people, 2,000 houses. We don't have any turnover in the city because people love living here. Pretty simple. The problems, I was elected in November of '24. I've spent all of 2025, examining the budget, digging deep into every department's expenditures, and running numbers. And there's literally no question that the problems, we have two assessment districts. We have the fire assessment district that dates back to 1997, and then we have the roads assessment district. Neither of them were designed to deal with inflation. The inflation in the fire department district is so little that we lose money every year because we're not even coming close to inflation. We don't have an inflation calculator in the roads assessment. So the assessment districts are so underfunded that my numbers were, if you were just try to balance them and try to create a separate fund for the sheriff's costs, it would cost all of us $3.25 a day more in tax. That's what it would cost us. In that way, we would balance the budget. That's my numbers. But I tell you, I've spent this last year, I spent at least 20 hours. I'm retired. I'm a businessman and a lawyer. I've done this kind of stuff for a long, long time. There's no question in my mind that my numbers are darn close to being correct. And I had Angie give us the numbers for the last 4 years. On gross revenues, Ray was talking about gross revenues. On total revenues of $5.2 million in 2022, we had to have a fund transfer of $230,000 to balance the budget out of the general fund. That's the unrestricted funds that we use to pay for the city. 2023, we had revenue of $5.9. We had to transfer $253,000 that year. Now this inflationary growth, plus the fact that we were underfunding the roads repairs, which we had to pay for out of our pocket, and the sheriffs, which we pay out of our pocket. In 2024, out of gross revenues of $6.2, we had we had to transfer $689,000 out of the general fund. In 2025, with income of 6.8, we had to transfer $603,000. So every year, for the last 4 years, that's almost $2 million that we took out of the general fund. Now, you know, Brian had an interesting expression the other day. He said, you know, we're not really a city, we're a homeowners association. And
okay.
and when you think about it that way, guys, that's kind of how we came into existence, right? The whole story about the La Habra thing was fascinating because back in '76, La Habra was making noise about wanting to pick up this territory. So what was then a mutual water district changed their whole focus of life and became a county water district. And why did they do that? Well, they did that because no longer were they just itinerant farmers that held private water rights. They did that to box out La Habra. And so the current boundaries of the city of La Habra Heights are the boundaries of the service area of La Habra Heights County Water District.
Okay.
They actually were the forerunner, and this is all because of the Improvement Association. Those people were dogged about protecting this area. They have done a remarkable job in the city of protecting what I came to live here for 25 years ago. So there's the concept of being able to the other thing, and we studied we've gone down every single pathway. I probably have 100 pages of analysis on what we've done to come to you today. We kicked off this whole sustainability gig simply because I said, man, you know, Orange County, or the city of Orange just went upside down by, I don't know, $8 million or $18 billion or some damn number, a huge number. And we have lots of cities now that are hanging on like this. We're not. We have, thanks to the previous councils and staff, we've been able to put aside a rainy day fund, but that would only last us for a year and a half. We have, you know, the grants have dried up. If we follow the federal government, the state government, they're not giving out grants anymore. Maybe Barb Bartoletta can give us some more money for some fire stuff. But we just approved last meeting. How much did we approve for the breathers, John?
Almost 150 grand.
150 grand for new rebreathers. All of this equipment dies, right? It has a mandated longevity life, and when it does, come July of this year, all of our turnouts, those yellow jackets you saw out there, they cost almost $3,800 a piece just for the turnouts. Forget the breather or any of that other happy stuff, right? In July, they all die. That's another $130,000. We have not spent capital money in this city except on roads I can't, as long as I can remember, we stopped spending capital money in 2014 or 2015. We just didn't have it to spend. Rafferty and Angie and all the other wonderful people who work for us, they're working 60 hours a week just to try to keep up, When you lose as many employees, so the reality for me is I pay, on the 2 assessment districts on my house on Greenview, I pay around $1,400 of tax for those 2 assessments. I computed my own house based upon my own analysis. Mine would go up to about $2,600, I think, something like that, which is chicken feed to me. I mean, it's not, and if we ever did put on the ballot, if in November we put on the ballot for a measure, we would obviously build in protection for people that can't afford it. Every county measure you've seen in the last 5 years has had a specific opportunity for people to file an action for an exemption, and if they make less than $66,610 a year, they're exempt from the tax. They don't. And so the people that are retired or living on pensions or have lost their spouse, whatever we do, we will protect them if we move this to ballot. But I can't. After all this work I've done, after virtually dedicating my life to figuring this out this year, past year, I can say no other way to do this. You can't, these people, there is no way anyone in this city is spending money unwisely. I mean, when Chief Martin had his detailed analysis, he was telling us how he was having to take a badge from one of his young people and give it to another one because they didn't have enough money to buy badges. $250 a badge. Didn't have enough money to do that. So we found a donation to buy the badges. I was so embarrassed by that now I'm excited about the opportunity to try to get us back to a level playing field. We've got to get back there if we want this city. I want this city. I came here because I wanted to live here. And I would bet that the vast majority of people in the city still, certainly those of my age, feel that same way. But so, you know, that's why we've tried to be as detailed as we can, and to Ms. Gardner, the lady that was talking about, have we looked into everything? We have probably not looked into everything, but by God, we've looked into almost everything. And there's no waste in this city. I can't find Stephen Blagden, I love him, but there ain't no waste in this city. I couldn't find any. I mean, if anything else, we're wasting our people. We're wasting the people that work for us, both in administration and in the fire department. I analyzed the LA County Sheriff's costs, right? If we are so low on the totem pole of what it costs to get this, what Ray Brooks would say is a poor public service, it's still the cheapest you could ever find. You know, I mean, I think I forget which city it was, but there's a city right close to us. I don't think, and they use county sheriffs, and per capita, their cost is twice what ours is. So we were kind of lucky that Alex Villanueva was sheriff for a while. And what was going to be an increase in our sheriff's costs sort of disappeared when Alex was here. We didn't do anything nasty. He just didn't have any impetus behind it. So I think the prices we're paying for things that we're getting today are conservative and frugal. And yes, I agree with Rick that we should try to improve the coverage to get 24/7 coverage in the city. I agree with that.
Am I understanding right? You just said that what we're paying for the sheriff, which is 70 hours per week at not quite $800,000 per year, that's the cheapest that...
I'm sorry?
The 70 hours per week at $800K per year, that is cheaper than what other comparable cities are paying for that amount of time?
Yes, significantly.
How much are these people making? I mean,
It's not only, it's all the overhead.
It's a lot of overhead.
It's tremendous overhead. You got liability issues there. I think it was 15% of our money goes towards their liability thing, and it's very expensive because we have the whole entire overhead. But we need to start to wrap this up today, otherwise we're going to be here.
To clarify, we have protection 100% of the time.
Yes.
It's just a physical car here 70 hours.
See, and actually, you could have a deputy in the city, maybe he's over on the west side, and you get a call on the east side, and you might have a car from another, on the north end, Hacienda Heights or something, that responds to that, and they end up getting there quicker than the guy that's actually in the city. What Rick was talking about is totally unacceptable, and I asked for a report for the next council meeting, so I don't know what he promised you, Rick, but that's what I had asked for. So we're trying to get some feedback on the next council meeting on exactly what happened on that, because that is unacceptable. But, you know, we negotiated this way back when with the Sheriff's Department, and at that time we went with the overtime for the motorcycle police and the white car, what they called, they're not actual civil service. CSO.
Community Service Officer.
And they can write parking tickets and all that, and they can report in on those things. So based on what we have, it's very cost effective for our community. Now anything over than that, of course, our costs are going to go up tremendously. And we're paying for, we got 24-hour service. Are they actually physically in the community all the time during those 24 hours? No. But that's choices we have to make. We have so much money, and we have to spend it all in these other areas, and that's the things we're talking about today and how we have to run our city.
So then that $800,000 is not just those 70 hours, it's coverage that number really is representing
24 hours, 7.
well, the entire bucket of safety, essentially.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because the way that it was presented was that the 70 hours cost 800,000, not that, these other, things were coming out of that same bucket.
I mean, your hourly cost is going to incorporate a lot of other things.
Yeah, no, of course, they have benefits and all of that.
They bill
get
it out. They bill it out at a per cost. How many hours you have in the city and stuff. But there's, if you incorporate the whole aggregate, there's tons of costs in that whole thing.
So safety.
We're getting very cost-effective police service right now.
Okay, but just to be crystal clear, the 800,000 is paying for all of our safety, not just that 70 hours that are covered. It's paying for everything, for access to, 24 hours, the safety officer, all of that is at 800,000, not the 70 hours of coverage. I guess because that's where I was
Bradford,
confused.
did I have this correct on what I'm saying?
Yes.
So the 70-hour base that you're referring to, that's $671,000. That includes all the overhead. Anything extra is overtime. So it could be 80,000 total, 90 or 900,000. It could be 700,000. It ranges. We don't have any control over that. So normally I'll budget about 800, 900,000 per fiscal year. But right now, this year, the base, including all the overhead for our one deputy to be here 70 hours, is 671,000.
Okay, and then as you said, you obviously have to allocate another, sounds like, roughly 20% almost because of,
just extra for other services, for our CSO who patrols in the evening, issues parking tickets, any other extra services.
Also, the CSO does come out of that same bucket. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so in the budget for public safety for law enforcement, it's just one object code, and it's all, if you look at the budget, it's all in there. It's just broken down and kind of lumped in. But annually for this fiscal year, for sheriffs, it's 671,000 just for the deputy. Anything else is extra.
Okay, and that's where the CSO comes out of? Okay.
Yes.
Also, so they are costing about 700,000 then, that one person?
I mean, it depends. It depends how many calls we have, if we have them come out, if there's a traffic collision accident, they come out. It just depends.
Okay, so that answers my question. Thank you.
Stephen, you've had your time to speak, but make it quick. I'll give you 1 minute max.
Thanks. Just a couple of follow-up comments on the fee revenue. We're legally required to only charge what it costs. So it doesn't matter if you had twice as much permits or fees, it's not going to make money for the city to cover other costs other than what it costs to supply it. And the current city permit system, when it was purchased in 2007, has the capability for online permitting. It just needs to be activated. And then it was mentioned about the gym and getting grant to fix it. Most of the use of the gym is rentals and other things, just be torn down. That was actually an idea back in '87 after the earthquake. Yeah, I've looked in the budget, I can't find it, maybe I missed it, but it has general fund transfers out, but it doesn't say transfers out to where. And same thing like the fire department, there's transfers in. I assume it's the general fund, but it doesn't say it. And then on the sheriff's department, I mentioned about private patrol. I sent you some information of contracts from other cities that could augment the sheriff's service at a relatively low cost. And we are a very low crime city. If you look at the online crime map, Harbor Heights, there's practically nothing. We're surrounded, it looks like a crime wave. So we're fortunate to live in a very low crime city. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much. And I think I can leave this, I think I can speak for the rest of the council here too, that all of us want this city to survive. And all of us, I think, agree on the fact that we are and will look at every single way to make this place a viable city. And it's, we're not leaving anything off the table as far as any exclusions, as far as how we cut costs and how we gain revenue. We're going to be looking at every single thing to make this place work. And does the rest of the council have any comments? Carol?
I just had one comment. There was a comment on the jump in revenue from, I don't know, 22 to 23 or whatever. I'm assuming part of that was the federal government gave every city a bunch of ARPA money for the COVID, and we got $1.5 million. I'm looking at Rafferty. And then we also had the $1 million from the Pacheco grant. Does that help explain why we sort of had that bump in revenue there?
When we went through the numbers, we backed out the ARPA, so that wasn't included as part of the revenue.
It was just mostly during that time because of COVID, inflation. People were coming in, pulling permits. We had a lot of activity during that time. So we did receive a lot of revenue.
Our other revenue, like the biggest components there are obviously fees and other revenues, which is like franchise fees, and licenses and permits, which are permits and development fees, are the largest component of the other revenue that we see.
Thank you.
So I do want to just talk a little bit about the volunteerism in the city. I know John Dominguez is here, and John has been pushing very hard to increase and bring some formality around how we use volunteers. I heard someone talk about using students to come in and do work. I really want to pull the thread on that a little bit and see how we can better utilize volunteers in the city. We are a city that has a lot of folks that are of retirement age. I know that as some of my fellow council members here spend quite a bit of time volunteering in the city. This may seem like we just have one meeting a month and that's it, but I can tell you that I probably over a month's period of time spent 18 to 20 hours either going out and listening to residents, dealing with issues. On the weekends, sometimes it's just us that are here in the city, and when people start doing things, deciding to dig a 6-foot deep trench alongside a hillside public road, it's us that go out and sometimes are the face of the city to deal with those issues. I enjoy my volunteerism with the city. I know there were reasons why in the past some of the volunteers became disenfranchised with the city. I've been really encouraged by the work John and others have been doing to try to rehabilitate volunteerism in the city, and I think that's one of our, I'll say, key mechanisms to starting to close some of these gaps, because if you look at what is our cost driver in the city, it's labor. I mean, it is, the materials for roads cost a lot, but when you look at what's really adding a lot more to the cost, I mean, look at our engineering costs in the city, that's labor costs. Look at the cost of admin, it's labor. Fire department, it's labor. So I really want to stay a city. I'll echo what Brian said. I'm terrified of joining LA County. I look at how LA County is led, and I mean, all of you should just be terrified by what's happening in LA County. The amount of liability LA County has right now, I mean, look at the horrible things that have happened in LA County in the past, and now the lawsuits that are being brought against that city. Lawsuits for McLaren Hall, lawsuits for the work that, or the stuff that was happening over at some of the jails. It's just mismanagement by LA County leaders that are leading just huge exposures that, by the way, if we go back to LA County, we become part of that. And we might think that, yeah, the little issues we have in this city are, important, but the amount of liability LA County has right now, they're increasing liability associated with fires, whether it be Palisades or Altadena. It's all stuff LA County has to deal with. And, we have local control of what happens in the city. If we go back to the county, you lose a lot of that control. You have to beg the county to do things. If you're upset, when people are upset with what happens in the city, they come to me. They come to this council and they tell us, hey, we're really displeased. And it's our job to listen, and it's our job to kick the rudder, and it's our job to be responsive to what this city needs. I'm just terrified of if we go back to the county, if we don't figure this out and we go back to the county, we lose all of that. Yes, you can go talk to a county supervisor, but do you really think, we have a hard enough time today trying to get their attention. Do you really think that if we're not a city that that's going to improve? I just don't see it. And I'm like I said, I'm terrified of going back to that environment and dealing with the leadership that we see in LA County, because, I think we're a pretty conservative city. We have a lot of conservative views. That is not, we are so far apart from what I think LA County leadership is today and where I think LA County is heading. I know, Rick, you talked about what does it take to join, can we separate and become part of Orange County? I don't know the answer to that, but I'm going to ask the question. I think we're much more aligned with Orange County than we are with LA County. I don't know. I've never heard of a city, kind of separating from one county and moving to another. I don't even know if that can happen, but my commitment after hearing all of you today is I'm going to ask the question, but I'll just say this. We have to fix this, because what happens on Hill Street terrifies me. And I would not, and that's where the Board of Supervisors is at, I would not want to put my fate, my family's fate, I plan on living here till I can't live here anymore, and I really don't want to see the city have that happen. I've heard several times now about the property value issue. I'd like to understand that too. I don't get it. We have beautiful properties. I know that there's some issues we need to look at with code enforcement and, keeping the weeds down, but that can't be it. I don't know what it is, but I think we need to poke at that a little bit harder too and figure out why, when a tract home in Hacienda Heights is selling for, $1.7, $1.8 million, and it's just a tract home, and we've got a beautiful home up here that looks identical and it's sitting on 2 acres and it's at 1.3, 1.4 million. I don't get that. But I know we have some realtors in town that maybe they can help the city guide us with what we need to do to make people know about our city a little bit more and help market the city a little bit more. But there's a lot of stuff we can do. I thank Greg for kind of kicking us off and having these meetings, but I'll just say this. It's going to have to be a really, really, really bad place for the city to be in to even think about going back to the county, because I think we become an afterthought. I don't think we'll get, just dealing with the county the way I've dealt with the county for the last 4 years and having worked for the county for almost 30 years, I'll just say this. It's definitely frying pan fire type issue here if we have to do that. So, we need to work together, find ways to, cut costs, increase income. I hear why, can we try to attract some business to Hacienda and West? I've heard just simple things like, why don't we just turn it into RV storage? And, at least then you don't have the eyesore of the lot full of weeds, and residents can use it. Maybe it generates more income. I don't know if that's a good use for it or not, but we should be exploring ways to increase our other operating revenues within the city to limit, you know, the impact on residents.
Okay, I see some hands out there. Make it real quick, please.
I'll come up and say it the simple way. Bruce Thomas, I've been here since '54, when Edwin Hart was selling property here. You brought up City of La Habra and wanting to take over the Heights. The Heights was part of La Habra, as back in the 1800s. They separated. That it just developed that way. My civic service that I did, 35 years in the fire department as a volunteer, I think we as a city are not taking advantage of all of the very intelligent people that live here in the Heights, business people, that they're not donating time to the city with all of their knowledge. You guys are all, to me, up here somewhere. I think you're very intelligent. You know what you're doing, but you're limited to your thoughts, your ideas. Every one of them is great. And John just said it very well. I'm not that good. I'm a follower. I'm a great follower. I'm not a leader. So I don't have these great ideas. And there are too many people in this city that are not volunteering that little bit of time with those great ideas that would help all of this. I haven't left the Heights. I retired in '05. I was going to move to Arizona, and I love the Heights so well that I'm still here for that reason. John said it. It's a great place to live. We don't want to let it go. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you. Come on up real quick. We're going to wrap this up here pretty soon, but I want everybody that hasn't been able to speak, at least speak a little bit.
Yeah, I have heard several people comment on the values of the properties here compared to other cities. And I think that raising the property tax will not help that. In fact, it'll work against it because people will consider that when considering where they're going to go. If they're going to be paying extra tax, perhaps they will not. So I'm just saying, let's try to find other ways to generate more income. I know it's needed, but going straight to the tax base will not work in our favor as far as increasing the values. Something to consider.
No, that was a good comment. Thank you. Okay.
So we have an event space here, and it's not very well advertised. I think we could use that as a way to get people informed on what La Habra Heights has to offer. A lot of my friends are moving to Yorba Linda. They think it offers more than what we have to offer here, but that's just not the case. Also, Matrix Oil, you guys just said that that revenue is going away, but never expanded on that. What happened there? But the last one is we're sitting on a huge inert fill opportunity on Cypress. There's several thousand tons of dirt that can go in there at $70, $80 a ton, if not hundreds of thousands or millions of tons that could be brought in there. I don't know what it would take to get that property or to do something with that, but that could fund our budget, or we could trade with some of these RJ Nobles or those types to offset the money that it takes to build our roads with a fill operation. I know a landfill is not going to be hugely popular, but I mean, it's a giant hole in the ground right now, so it could be a way to make some money. But I think the park up the street, we just need to advertise that and get the word out about La Habra Heights, and more people my age will come move here. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for those comments.
Yeah, one more, Brian.
Come on up, please.
I'll make it quick. My name is Louis Hernandez. I'm off of Avocado Crest. I'm a 30-year veteran of the fire service. I got a real big concern about our fire department here. A couple comments were made that we run EMS calls for majority, and that's true for 99% of fire departments. The issue in La Habra Heights is the brush. Okay, La Habra Heights is a freight train ready to run through it. Okay, every time it starts raining like this, I get concerned come September, October, Santa Ana winds. If we don't have the proper fire department with good response times, veteran firefighters, that's gonna create an issue for us, okay? We already said a majority of our budget comes from property taxes. I spent 14 days at the Eaton Fire, okay, very similar to our beautiful city, okay? I've only been here for about 15 years. I love the city, but I work for a very busy, tough city, okay, that's completely opposite of La Habra Heights. I've seen the challenges when we choose not to invest in our fire department, okay, whether it be our people, our equipment, and we suffer with our responses. Public safety should be number one, okay? When we call 911, we expect someone to come in a timely manner and be able to treat us and our family members competently, okay? That's what I'm looking for. This gentleman made John, I apologize, made a comment about the liability. You know what? We're looking at liability. If something like the Eaton Fire runs through here and we're not maintaining our brush and stuff like that, what's going to happen our tax base then? So we're talking about a couple thousand, $100,000 investing into the fire service, but what are the consequences of not investing that money into the fire service? Okay, our properties start burning up. We have an Eaton Fire incident run through here. We're done. Okay, and that's my concern. I promise you, come September, October, every year for the last 15 years, I lose sleep. Okay, I start watching the winds, and you know what? Start thinking we need to upgrade our fire department. We need a pre-deployments. We talk about the county, but the county's not going to come in here if they have issues in Whittier, Hacienda Heights. They're going to take care of their dirt first. Okay, and there's only a certain amount of resources. Everyone's short right now. Okay, I actually work for an Area E fire department, and it's going to take us 25 minutes to get here in case of a brush fire. Believe me, I come out here, I've drilled in my beautiful city. I love this city, but I'm really concerned, and I'm going to ask you guys to really take a look, and you guys should be concerned too with the upcoming fires, you know, fire season. It's been raining a lot. I'm looking at the brush. All this stuff's going to dry up. So anyways, I appreciate your time. I'd really like for you guys to consider, you know, risk versus gain. Yeah, we're going to invest some money into our fire service, but what's the risk if we do not invest that money? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then, yes, you are correct on that, and we definitely do a lot of work with our fire department. And I don't know if you're aware of it or not, we put in the helihydrant. We're the first in LA County to do that, so that was for exactly the reasons you're talking about. So,
yeah, Brian, I think we should also expand on the work that we're doing with one of our, we just hired a vendor to actually come in and do fuel surveys. So for the first time, we're using satellite and drone technology to fly over the city to do risk work to determine what are the sites that present the biggest risk to the city. It's painful because we've never done this, and there are properties that our fire marshal has never been able to properly go out and inspect, but now we are. And as a city, we have to decide how hard are we going to push on residents to get brush clearance done. You guys are convincing me. I'm not hearing anyone say don't push hard. I'm hearing everyone today that's come up and talked about this concern saying we need to push harder. So I just hope that when we get into May and June and July and we're getting more aggressive with brush clearance, that the folks today that are here saying, hey, this is really important to me that you come and support the council, because there are people that will be here complaining about how aggressive we're getting with brush clearance. And I know a lot of you know my background. Eaton scared the crap out of me, and it should scare everyone in the city. And it's why I've heard the proposals to maybe back off on our firefighting capabilities. I hate to, as long as I'm here and I'm up here, I'm not going to do that, because seconds matter. When that happens, when the fire breaks out, hoping that LA County is going to send us a rig to put out a fire in the middle of a windstorm, you're absolutely right. There are going to be other places. That's what happened to Altadena. What happened to Altadena was all that stuff was over in LA dealing with the LA fire, and by the time the Altadena fire broke out, it was too late. They didn't have the resources there to deal with it. I don't want that to be us. And so I'm saying if you guys, I mean, if that's what this community supports, fine, understand there's a cost to that. We all have to be willing to pay it. It's the reason why this council just approved it was uncomfortable, but we approved $150,000 to make sure our firefighters are equipped to deal with this stuff. So just know we're going to be pushing hard on fire. It's going to make some people uncomfortable in this city. I hope that you guys, the people that are here today telling us this is important to them, also support us when we start making those tough decisions, because there are people that are going to be impacted. It does cost a lot of money, as we all know, because we all own acreage up here in the city, to do brush clearance. So I'll stop there.
No, I'm glad John brought that up, because I don't think that's out there getting publicized enough regarding that. We just recently approved that at I guess it was the last council meeting, where we went through with the technology that we're going to do the imaging, and they're going to be looking at the actual fuel loading of the city and the habitat area and all of those areas to really determine where the real hazards are. So it gives the fire department a much better picture of things without going out there and physically looking at it, which they'll do too, but now at least they can identify the hot spots and then go out there and physically identify them using that technology. So that's exciting for us that we approve that.
If I might, Brian?
Yes.
One of the things we've just been focusing on in the past few months is the extent of habitat unmaintained property in the city. The Habitat has approximately 730 acres out of our 3,900 acres in the city. The voters just agreed to pay a tax in Proposition PH, which is designed and supposed to require them to better protect our city. Well, if you haven't thought about it, the Habitat Authority owns virtually all of the west side of Harbor Boulevard, starting at Old Fullerton Road and the terminus of Old Fulton Road, all the way up to the 5-acre site they just acquired over the Ranch Hill property, the 5-acre site, and then the entrance to Potter Canyon. So if you were to light a match at the bottom down by the Korean Church on Fullerton Road, and the wind was blowing the right way, it would blow straight through this unmaintained Habitat Authority, all the way up over Ranch Hill, all the way down to the 5-acre site on the other terminus of Old Fullerton Road, and into Potter Canyon. If our observation as City Council at the moment is that A, we don't have a seat on the Joint Powers Authority that runs the Habitat Authority, and they don't want to give us one. And we're the city that is the most in danger of every of the cities that are maintained. Whittier and Hacienda Heights have always gotten the vast majority of the clearing and the vast majority of the attention. For some reason, we're not liked there. So we're currently having an effort to get a seat on the Habitat Authority, but mostly I want all of us to think about that line of fire. If because of all that unmaintained area, we're going to have to, we may get to the point where we have to force the issue on whether or not they're actually doing what they should be doing, because I don't believe they're coming anywhere close to doing that. So the other thing I just want to mention, so we don't forget it, is in January, we created the Harbor Heights Community Foundation, which is a nonprofit 5013 entity designed to be a conduit for donations and contributions for capital improvements for the fire department. Our board is Stan Carroll, Roy Francis, and Fred Klein are the three board members. Each of them have given more hours to this city in service than anybody else in the city, except maybe Brian. And they're wonderful people, and so we're going to start we'll start seeing publicity about that. My wife and I are going to take our IRA mandatory withdrawal for this year and move it over as a qualified charitable deduction. That's a top-line deduction. Important thing, we're going to try to solicit people that have similar opportunities as we have to put some money in there and try to build up a few $100,000 in the first year so that we can deal with some of the capital requirements that we can't otherwise deal with, and we shouldn't have to deal with out of the general fund. So I encourage you to watch out for that, and if you have friends that have a few extra bucks in their pocket, tell them it's a good charitable deduction and it comes off the top of their income. Thanks.
Thank you, Greg. Any other comments from the council? All right. Thank you much, and we are adjourned.